Welcome to Off Post. I'm Russ Cohen. We've got Anthony Mingione. And how are you?
Doing all right, Russ. Pretty exciting night of hockey last night, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, for us, maybe not for Mike. And we have Michael Jello. Mike, how are you?
Oh, I didn't have a problem with it. It was an exciting game, but I as I said, I don't know if I said it to you guys, that was a very Toronto Maple Leaf type collapse.
You're talking about from Colorado?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I don't call it a collapse.
No.
And I don't call what happened to Dallas the other day a collapse. This was two mega powers.
It's two great teams. It's two great teams.
It's two mega powers kind of like
and a superstar player, put on his cape after being basically Clark Kent earlier in the series, and he turned into Superman at the end of it. So,
I didn't look at it that way.
It's what we hoped for. When we looked at this matchup, we were just like, again, it is a shame that it is the first round, but I do get it from the whole, hey, you want to get people locked in and you want to give it early reason for people to want to watch the Stanley Cup playoffs. If you're a casual and like, why should I watch it? That series pretty much was, and right up until the end is no question. It was exquisite. It's probably the best phrase I could use.
Yeah, I mean, look, I felt like maybe Jake Ottinger was a little bit of the difference in the series, and that's fair. I mean, I don't think Blackwood played particularly bad. I just think Jake Ottinger was better.
I think it was just both teams came with their. I think both teams had their A. It was an A+ effort on both sides for the series. Sometimes, again, it was, and I want to keep. We're looking at like a heavyweight boxing match, and sometimes you're going to see those terms where one side really starts to get on the other one, and then it gets back and forth, and then you get into the championship rounds, and both of them have done damage to one another at this point. And certain times of the series where the one team looks like they're on the ropes early, and it's going to be a quick out. And to Dallas's credit, despite what they had, the issues that they had early in the series, they didn't have Heiskanen, they didn't have Robertson, and they persevered.
And Mikko Rantanen got back at his old club. We've seen that a million times. And now we have Dennis Gorman joining us from the train. Dennis writes for Newsday and a lot of other things. He's covering. Well, he was covering the Knicks. I think he is still covering the Knicks. Sorry, and all things New York. How are you, Dennis?
Great, Russ. How are you guys doing?
Good. All right. So let's get started. We saw what happened with the Rangers. They hire Mike Sullivan. That wasn't a shock, but I know Mike Sullivan was wanted by other teams too. And so he went back there. When I was covering there pretty regularly, he was the assistant there. So I get it. Dennis, he's not going to change the roster. And I still see big problems with the roster. Like he might get 5 more wins out of them, but I don't think he's making this major turnaround next year.
No, for sure not. And I mean, the guy who's going to have to change the roster is Chris Drury. That's obvious. I think the biggest thing for Mike is he's going to have to come in and I think install a standard. And I mean, if you watched the Rangers at any point last season, there were times where they just were non-existent on the ice. You couldn't see a coherent defensive structure. You couldn't see a coherent offensive attack. There are times they struggled gaining the zone and clearing the zone, which is kind of problematic in hockey. So I think this season is going to be about implementing a standard and then building towards being a cup team potentially.
Yeah, and I would say in terms of it with Sullivan, in many ways he's got more talent than, let's say, Tortorella did when he was trying to he's trying to restart the Flyers. We keep talking about standards and everything. But again, I have to draw to both because they both cut from the same cloth in this case in terms of how they want their teams to play, Dennis. So, I just getting structure in that room, understanding, everybody has to pull, the old phrase, everybody's got to pull on the same rope. The talent, I think there's talent there in New York. Yes, there's holes. And that's where Drury has to, earn his new contract.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at some of the names on that roster. These are skilled guys. Because Zibanejad is a skilled player. Artemi Panarin is a skilled player. Adam Fox is a skilled player. But to that end, I think, and this has been an issue going back to the Elaine Vigneault years. Elaine Vigneault wanted the Rangers to be more of a north-south team. David Quinn wanted them to play north-south. Gerard Gallant wanted them to play north-south. Peter Laviolette wanted them to play north-south. And the Rangers, almost too many times to count, would fall into the trap of playing east-west and trying to out-skill teams, maybe out-pretty teams.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're Edmonton with McDavid and Draisaitl, you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think there's a value in being able to, get in on the forecheck, wear down teams, with the sustained cycle, the sustained forecheck, and I think that's what he's going to implement. And to that point, I think we're going to see a lot of Chris Drury making moves this offseason, whether it's potentially trading a Chris Kreider, potentially looking at an Artemi Panarin trade. It's going to be very difficult for them to trade because of Vinny because he's got 5 years left on his deal.
Well, he already said
$8.5
he's
million.
not going anywhere. And the fact that he's sort of militant about it, I don't think they could trade him.
Yes, I think it'll be very, very difficult for them to trade him. And again, obviously Mika kind of drew a line in the sand there, but just from a purely financial standpoint, I don't know that there's going to be too many teams that's going to want to take on 34, almost $43 million, almost $44 million in cap space for the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
This has to be one of Sullivan's first phone calls then, because that's, a key player who's going to be with you for the long stretch, and to communicate very, very quickly to Mika that, this is what I'm looking for from you as one of the core players. And this is how we're going to do it. So it's going to be interesting to see that relationship evolve.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. One of the things, and it was one of the you could call it a success for Peter Laviolette this year, is following the JT Miller trade. Laviolette put Zibanejad on Miller's right wing, and he was, I believe, the third highest scorer on the team in the last 30 something games. Does Sullivan implement that? Because it doesn't make sense to have an $8.5 million third line center. It doesn't make sense, and it's going to take Mika out of positions where he can generate offense.
Dennis, can you the rumor that came out the day of Sullivan accepting the job was that at least it was out there in social media, and I'm here to try to find out whether you've heard this as well, is that Tortorella may come on as an assistant. Is that something that you think is realistic, or do you think that's just like social media idiocy?
I mean, I thought there was a possibility simply because, Mike and John have had a very good relationship for a long, long time. Mike was his assistant here in New York, and then in Vancouver. John was Mike's assistant on the Four Nations team, and I'm assuming he's going to be his assistant with the Olympics. But there was some reporting that came out, I want to say Friday or Saturday, that said Tortorella is not in contention or to be an assistant. And if you look at some of the jobs that are open right now, you could see John Tortorella being a candidate for some of those jobs.
Yeah, definitely. And I would look at that from the point of view of just, I wonder how much, Torts is willing to sort of kind of, I mean, listen, in an all-star Four Nations tournament setting, maybe over an entire season, John kind of keeping, himself low key. I find that hard. I think that'll be difficult, Dennis.
So, all right, Dennis. So let's talk about, you said, Chris Drury's in charge of the roster, and it's hard for Ranger fans to feel confident when you see contracts like Juuso Parssinen. He wasn't even playing towards the end of the season, and they signed him not to 1 year, but to 2 years. And as I dig into the contract, he got a $150,000 signing bonus too. Please tell me, other than trying to cover up for a bad trade, what he's trying to do with that. And then I'm waiting for the hammer to drop with Keandre Miller for them to give him a contract he's not worth. So what do you feel about those situations?
Well, I think with Keandre, he's an RFA, he's due a raise, but he did not have a great year by any appreciable measure. I mean, one argument you could make for him is at the start of the season when he was paired with Adam Fox. That was a pretty good pairing. Then Ryan Lindgren came back from his jaw injury suffered in
Yeah.
training camp, and then it was, you know, Miller Lindgren. Lindgren Fox, and then Miller with Jacob Trouba, and then just as the year progressed, it seemed like he couldn't get on track. That said, you look at his attributes, his height, his length, his strength. You know, would you want to trade that and have him blossom somewhere else and be a really good defenseman? In Ottawa or in Colorado or insert city here for 10
My
years.
retort is you don't have to trade him, but you can give him like a 3-year bridge. Don't give him 7 years because he's been trending down the last 2 years. Let him prove it.
Oh, I agree. I think that's a very fair point. I think that's probably where they're headed, but unless they get a blowaway, but if they get a blowaway offer that they can't say no to, I mean, everyone can be traded. The only person in sports right now who can't be traded is Shohei Ohtani. So I mean,
Right.
right. So I mean, if they get if they get an offer you can't say no to, I don't think Chris Drury is going to turn it down. And with I'm going to mispronounce his name, so forgive me in advance. With Parkinen, I think they look at him as a potential third line center, maybe a fourth line center. They already have a fourth line center in Sam Carrick, so I don't know. Do they want to put him in that position of being the third line center?
I mean, he can't play third line center. Like, come on.
Yeah, Russ, this might be a deal that they gave him the second year so they can slip him through waivers to go down to Hartford and not lose him because he's a big center.
I mean, for 2 years, I mean, I don't see the second year. I don't get, and the signing bonus. It's like, what did he do to earn a signing bonus? Like, that's crazy to me. I don't know. They're just throwing around money, Dennis.
Yeah, I mean, I think they like his height. I think they like his height. I think they like the fact he plays a little heavy. So, and they're trying to be more of a North American, heavy forecheck team.
Okay. And you're right. So let's talk about that. They redid the blue line to sort of mirror that. And now it's slow and not very talented. But yes, they did achieve that other part that you're talking about. So, like, what did that get done, really?
I mean, agreed. It has hurt them, I think, pretty significantly. One of the things that I've thought for more than a year now is they need to add another puck moving defenseman. Right now, their only puck moving defenseman is Adam Fox. That is not great. So and I don't know how they go about doing that. So they need that. I think they looked at what Florida did to them last year in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think they looked at Tampa Bay a couple of years ago, where they got worn down over the course of a series. And I think they made the determination we need to be bigger and heavier on the back end. But and that's fair to a certain extent. But if you also look at those teams, they had mobile defensemen who were big and heavy. It wasn't just big heavy guys.
Russ, Carson Soucy's not a puck mover?
Carson Soucy was maybe the worst skater I've seen in the NHL this year. No jokes.
I'm trying to think of a certain other advanced stats darling defenseman who everybody loved. I'm trying to remember.
Gardner.
No,
Yes.
it wasn't. It was this was somebody else. This is
somebody
someone
else you had in
I'm
mind?
trying to remember.
Justin Hall.
No, it was definitely. This was not. I don't believe he ever played for the Leafs. The name is on the tip of my tongue, but
Well, if it
he
comes
had all
up.
the turning radius of a battleship. Dennis, wanted to ask you about what kind of the plan is going to be right now for Gabriel Perreault. I mean, he got obviously an opportunity briefly, coming up with the Rangers, but seems like there's probably he's going to need a little bit of time in the AHL. What are your thoughts on? Do you think he's going to need a full season in the A just to kind of get him up to full speed, even though he came out of college hockey, or do you think he's gonna have some kind of a say so here in the Sullivan era?
Oh, I think they're going to give him every opportunity in camp to earn a job. They are very high on him, but he's a guy who's, I think, maybe 5'9", maybe 180 pounds. I think he might need a full year at AHL Hartford, just get acclimated to professional hockey. And I don't think that's a negative whatsoever.
No.
But yeah, they are going to give him every chance to earn a job. They're going to give Brendan Hoffman a chance to earn a job. Brett Berard's going to get every chance to earn a job. And this brings me to kind of a question that I know a few people have written about. I think Larry Brooks in particular. Larry wrote something to the effect of, who was the last young player in Pittsburgh to really develop under Sullivan? And I thought about it. I said, is it Jake Gunsel? Is it Jake Gunsel the last?
And he developed under Crosby.
Yeah, he did. But I would also say, we were talking about the Rutherford era, and they tended to lean hard into trades and veteran.
Yeah.
There's only so many slots, I think, that were really available.
Yeah, Gensel and Rust developed.
Gansel and Rutz definitely developed under him, but they became such a vet. I feel like the Penguins became a very veteran-laden roster. That there was a pecking order there, that there was a ceiling for how high you could potentially go. Gensel was remarkable in terms of the fact of how he was able to do that. But you're right. I think Gensel would have been, in terms of a guy. And then you're talking defense, maybe in that case, maybe some of but even them, some of those guys were some of the younger defensemen were acquisitions. So it's just the way the Penguins kind of structured. I'm curious. I'm as curious as you are, Dennis, in terms of how that's going to work with Sully in terms of, but he may not, again, personnel wise,
I'm going to say something.
May need to.
I'm going to say something based on talking to people, and it made me think. I think the Rangers will make some trades, and so, like Dennis, I think Brendan Hoffman may get traded. That's my feeling, and so
that would be. I think that would be. My just for Dennis in this case, I would say that would be a mistake. I really like Hoffman.
I mean, I know they like the fact that he plays with his hair on fire. They like the fact that he has an edge. But if they can get a significant NHLer back for him in a deal, like if he's a secondary piece in a deal that gets them someone of significance, I think they would have to do it. But I don't think it's just going to be Brendan Hoffman for a 4th round pick.
No,
I can't imagine that.
No.
Dennis, if you're talking about edge, Matt Rempe is all edge. I don't know if there's a middle there. There's just like he's 6'7" of edge. The question is, he's been spotted. He's not been giving tons of ice time. Then he gets suspended. And under Peter Laviolette, the question is, do you think Mike Sullivan will be able to maybe hone those edges a little bit and get him to be a more effective player and play more 11, 12 minutes a night and be somebody who can contribute to the Rangers?
Yeah, I do. I wrote a piece at the start of the season for the Toronto Star about Matt Rempe, and talked to him a little bit in training camp, and he said, he likes fighting. He understands that fighting is going to be part of his game, but he wants to be a guy that can play 10, 11, 12 minutes a night, a guy who can play penalty kill, a guy who can, be counted on, up a goal, with 2 minutes or with a minute to go in the game in a defensive zone faceoff. He doesn't want to be just the guy who's seen as a fighter. Part of the problem last year, certainly the suspension for Heiskanen hit did not help matters, but neither did Peter Laviolette not playing him, like, for wide swaths of the season, he was getting 5-6 minutes a night. And it's like, well, how can this guy develop if you're not giving him ice time? There's only so much development you can do in practice. I know at one point he got sent to Hartford, and he was saying at Hartford he was playing 18, 20 minutes a night. He was getting power play time, and he felt like he was really developing in Hartford. So, I do think, Sullivan is going to spend some time with him. He's going to spend some time with Adam Edstrom. You're going to have 2, 6'7", 6'8" guys, both who are 240 plus. That's a really nice place to start for your fourth line.
Yeah, I think they can find 10 minutes a night for those guys. I mean, that was the problem with Levy. Like, and look, I get it. The league has it out for Matt Rempe. Like, what they're calling like dirty hits, they're sometimes just hits that a much bigger guy is making, and he's getting called on it. And they almost have to adjust for these bigger players when they come in the league.
Yeah, I think that's very much true. I mean, going back to the I'm trying to think. His first really big hit was against the Devils, not this past season, but the season before, against Nathan Bastain. And immediately there was, a lot of screaming and yelling that it was a dirty hit. But if you really watch the hit, it's shoulder to chest.
Yeah.
Was the result bad for Nathan Bastain? Absolutely, it was. But it wasn't a dirty hit. You can't,
No.
if we're going to penalize people for being big, then we might as well not have anyone over 6'2" in the NHL. Like, that's just what it comes down to, I think.
Yeah, but again, the problem for him remains when you come into the league as he came in. It's going to be tough. First impressions are often what sticks with you at the very beginning, and it's going to be tough, I think, in that regard. He's going to get targeted because of that.
Yeah, and for sure. I mean, he's going to have to, and I think he knows this. He knows that, the refs are going to be watching him a little more closely than other players. So, I think he's still going to play his game. He's still going to be physical, but I think he's going to, take great pains not to be viewed as a guy who throws dirty hits.
Well, Dennis, listen, thanks for coming on. I'll leave you with this thought. Massapequa Park, Rockville Center. You know what I'm getting at. All right. Have a good one, and we'll catch up with you down the road.
Absolutely, boys. Have a good day.
Thanks, Dennis.
There's actually been some
absolutely, those were train stops, everybody.
Yeah. There's been some famous voices of the train in Penn Station. I forget, one of them I think was in sports, but I can't remember.
I'm so used to me
Bob
being
Shepard.
I'm so used to me doing
an actor.
I'm so used to me doing the mobile thing here on occasion, and from the car as I'm driving from work to jump on the we would do shows previously.
Yeah.
Russ, I think Bob Shepard did the voice of for the Metro North for Yankee Stadium games when he was still alive.
Oh yeah, no, but I mean, this was his job.
Oh, okay.
His job was to do that. It's it's somebody like an actor, but I can't remember who it was that actually did that for a little while. Like, that was their job.
Yeah. Alec Baldwin.
No. It was like an Italian actor. It was somebody like that, but I don't know. I can't find it right now.
Chaz Palminteri, maybe.
Somebody like that. It is. It is somebody like that. So we get back to the hockey.
Hold on. And when the train doors don't open, and he says, "Now you can't leave."
That's good. All right. So now we talk about tonight's game, Jets Blues. And everybody can, say that Hellebuck's not had a great series, and that's fine.
Get pulled 3 times in 3 road games. That's not great.
But they're in a game 7, and I'm going to go back to, if you're in a game 7, you are not playing Comrie. You're not starting Comrie. You're not even thinking about it.
No kidding.
Now,
you dance with the one you came with.
People were like, "Is Eric Comrie going to start?" No, he's not starting. He's not starting.
No, and honestly, he's been. It's been a rough series in many ways for Hellebuck. That being said, it's home ice,
right?
And
there's
something about if he has. Here's the thing: if Connor Hellebuck has a stellar game 7, I'm not going to say the other stuff, the things that have happened in this series and his previous things are immediately expunged. That's not true. That being said, you come up big in a game 7 and play well, and your team wins, it does go some ways to help because that means in the critical one, again, the advantage of home ice, last ice change, all that other stuff. That being said, if he can come up big, that being said, if he doesn't, he's really in a tough spot because it's going to be, you want, it's just not acceptable. And he's going to have to figure it out. So he's in such a crazy, legacy defining moment here is what game sevens are though.
If he doesn't, he's Mitch Marner with pads. And
I would magnify that further, Mike. I mean, when you're the goalie,
be more magnified than
like
that.
you can hide Marner in some ways. You can't hide your goalie. It's just the way it is.
Especially when he has this incredible, unbelievable year that he did, which I think he's one of the finalists for the Hart.
Yeah,
I think he's going to win it. But if he
of course people will be like, but he wasn't good in the playoffs.
But here's the thing: the wild
award.
Yeah, but the wild part's going to be if he does well here in Game 7. We don't like to talk about being able to sort of flip the switch, but it's something where if he gets past this first round series,
yes,
and in a moment like this, it's possible that once he's gotten past that kind of bugaboo, he can, it may just be get him like, okay, now I'm fully locked.
It's a mental hurdle, I think.
It's a mental hurdle. If you can get over that mental block, that mental hurdle, we could very well in round 2 and forward, maybe able to see more of the Connor Hellebuyck. And again, they've got home ice the whole way through. So if they can leverage that would be huge.
So let's talk about another goalie, one that I will never trust and never put my name to a series that he plays in again, and that's the LA Kings and Darcy Kemper. I told you I have trust issues with him, but I also had, I thought the Kings finally had figured out that they can get past the first round because they could play just enough defense. And you know what? I don't want to blame it on one person. I don't know if it's a failed clear or whatever, but they gave Edmonton just a little bit of life, and then they basically lost that series after that.
I said it. I think I said it on Wednesday's show. Possibly so far the worst decision of the Stanley Cup playoffs was Jim Hiller making that decision to review the goal with Evander Kane standing in the crease in Game 3, because then 10 seconds later the Oilers scored a power play goal and then they were off to the races. No, I mean I'm not blaming it all on Kemper because I think.
No, I'm not blaming it all on him. I'm just don't.
But I'll say this. The LA Kings are, I think, ownership of the LA Kings and Rob Blake should storm the offices of the NHL and say, could you please change the 1-8, change it back to 1-8, because we faced Edmonton 4 years in a row, and this is a load of shit. It's
not. You got to beat them.
No, it is what it is. It's just how things. It is how things lined up. I would love for them to go back to 1-8, and we should have better matchups here. And it's as the stakes get higher in the playoffs. I absolutely do that. But again, the league, is always worried about, obviously, with the NBA playoffs going on. How do we get people to tune in as soon as possible? And that's really, I think, at the end of the day, I think this is purely what generates this. I think it's making sure that the casual fans that have at least one or two series that curdle the blood, basically. And that's the reason why I don't think the league's going to just, as much as I want to see 1-8 back, I don't know if there's going to be enough of a siren call.
I think there is. I think it's going to change as soon as
I would love there to be, but I just don't know if there is.
As soon as Gary Bettman is gone, it's going to change.
I don't know. I can't count on that.
Going back to Kemper and Mike, you may be right as far as how the momentum went, but sometimes a goalie can get momentum. He had some good games, but his bad games were horrid.
Yeah,
It's kind of like a minute. It's almost like a mini version of what we've gotten with Hellebuyck, except they're still in it.
Exactly
like we're talking a Vezina Trophy candidate who absolutely powered the Kings to where they were during the regular season, and it was not able to keep his standard of play that he had during the regular season.
I mean, it's a number of contributing factors. One, they switched. Edmonton switched to Calvin Pickard, and although he wasn't phenomenal, he made enough saves at the right times to get them through. In that series, again, the Hiller decision in Game 3, they were up 2-0. They were winning that game late in the third period. Kane scores the goal. I think it was Evan Bouchard or Draisaitl tipped in Bouchard's shot, and then it was off to the races. Game 4, they're up 3-1 in the third period, and they blow the lead. So that at that point, the last 2 games, yes, exactly.
Yep.
They
and then once that happens, that cycle. When you have that kind of a block. And I know Mike's gonna be like, Toronto Maple Leafs, everybody, but it's in this case when you have an opponent like this is basically Leafs Bruins in the West. Yeah. Simple as that. That's where it is right now.
And they only lost 5 games during the regular season at home. They were a dominant team at home, and that showed in the first 2 games of the series. But that game 5, Edmonton dominated that game and won that game 3-1, I believe.
Yeah.
They may as well not even got back on the plane to Edmonton because they were never going to win.
And that score, I don't even think was indicative of the actual. It could have been 5-1. I mean, it had that kind of lopsided feeling. And at that point, I mean, I picked the Kings in the series, but at that point, when I saw how that game played out in Game 5, I was just like, they're broke. The LA's broken. There's just unless there's some other gear here, you just don't. When you blow a 2-0 series lead like that. I had zero hope at that point after that Game 5.
Yeah, I felt similarly. I saw Dennis Bernstein, our buddy, post, and he was like, there was this, thought that there was a lot of depth on the Kings. And, what's funny is I haven't liked a lot of moves that Rob Blake has made, but hey, it worked out for him this year. But, my answer back was it's perceived depth because if those guys don't come through, it doesn't really help you. And Edmonton has no depth, but it didn't matter because their best players were
their best players. And we talked about that. Is if their best player, if the Kings are able to keep the Oilers' best players in some relative level of check, they win this series. They let them run rough. They let them run roughshod, and they just did. And again, as longer the Edmonton's sort of hanging around here in the playoffs, obviously I'm still not big on their finals chances without Ekholm being back. And how good, that to me still, but at least for this first round series, it was the star power of the Oilers was enough to power them through.
And I'm assuming we're gonna release our predictions for the second round after tonight's game. But I'll give you a preview, folks. Not a chance in friggin' hell Edmonton is beating Vegas.
I don't know about that, Mike.
I think it'll be a close.
Well, that's my prediction.
I think it'll be closer. I'm more likely to lean Vegas, but
I'm not sure. I'm a little worried. Vegas's defense looks slower to me.
They didn't look fat. They did not. They came up in big moments, I think, and we can shift now to a brief discussion of that series. Yeah. But Minnesota showed me something in that series. They really did.
He's the top 5 player in the league.
Absolutely, and that's and they've got. I know we keep saying the promise that that the Wild are coming, and they have a lot of depth that is coming, especially on the blue line. Yeah, and now to view them and potentially a year of check over the long haul.
And now the only thing that Bill Guerin has to worry about is that the Kaprizov actually wants to be in Minnesota.
That is a worry.
Yeah.
They need to They need the next season or two here. They're going to need to really become top of the conference juggernaut. Close to juggernaut status. And I think there's raw material there for that. They may need one or two more moves to really kind of.
I mean, Zeke Bouillon will get better and better each year.
The big help will be. Is that the $14 million that was dead money from the Parise and Ryan Suter contracts are done now. It drops down to about 2.
But remember, Minnesota wasn't supposed to be able to do anything with that dead money, and Bill Guerin was like, not so fast. He did a lot. He did a lot with that team, even with the dead money.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's good. I mean they develop well too. You have to keep that in mind. They draft and Minnesota drafts and develops well, and that's how you can bridge the gap of dealing with the artifice of being capped off.
Trades were really good.
Trades have been really good, absolutely, and they've made good moves. And again, that's why I feel like next season or two, the Wild should be knocking on the top on the upper echelon on the door of the Western Conference. They really should. I would be disappointed if they're not.
And we say happy trails to Marc-Andre Fleury, not a nicer guy in the league. Yeah. Nobody who I covered him since juniors. This guy has been class personified the whole time. We've seen ups and downs, and he had his His downs were against Philly in the playoffs, but
that wild series that we watched, between Pittsburgh and Philly. That was
I didn't get
5 goals a game.
Ilya Bryzgalov.
It was, yeah. We honestly thought Fleury was cooked after that, and he absolutely he was not. He resurged. Yeah,
he won his 300th game in Philly with Vegas, which was cool. No, he's had a great career. The only problem is we didn't get to see the end of his career because ESPN cut away. And we have to talk about that decision. That's bad.
Yeah, I mean,
yes, I have to say that the coverage, the coverage, less of TNT, but more of ESPN has been, and just to be kind, wanting is the word I'll use, is wanting. And especially like after the game where your representative for the NHL is PK Subban dressed like a checkerboard, and making,
I don't care about that.
I honestly, Mike, I'm not looking at how he's dressed. I'm looking. But it does point in a certain direction here.
That was just my dig. But the problem is that PK Subban sells his personal agendas during his commentary when he should be talking about the game and about what happened in the game. We know he.
Are we talking from are we talking like from studio? You mean?
Yes.
I honestly, everybody who's a commentator in this case has an agenda of some kind. Just some are a little bit better, maybe at cloaking it. But let's not act like not every commentator doesn't have some kind of an agenda.
This and that doesn't cloak it at all.
Yeah, exactly. So that to me is just.
And Russ, I have a problem with that too, because he's like pom-pom waving, wearing the Leaf tie, wearing the Leaf jacket. It's like you never played for the Leafs. And
we're talking about Biz now.
Yeah. No, I have just as much.
He's a personality. That's what they want in the studio. They want Mike. They want personality in the studio. Everything is based. You know this now.
Yep.
The standard now for studio shows is inside the NBA. We know that. That's the model. So it's one of those things that if you're looking for hard analysis, I'm not sure those studio shows, or at least the producer, they're looking at that as they want that. They want hot takes. And all that. And I think it's just a product of, I think, if producers are like, no, we want this to be more analysis. It maybe force those, then you're going to be looking for those kind of analysts.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know that they're encouraged, and we'll get back to the games in a second. I know that they're encouraging them to have personality, and Bissonnette's like walking around the studio like he's a Kentucky Derby horse, and Anson Carter is encouraging him, and Lundqvist is. I think Lundqvist is doing his best to have a personality, which I have a lot of respect for Henrik Lundqvist.
His analysis is very good.
His analysis is great. So is Gretzky's, but their personalities aren't exactly ebullient.
No, but
the problem is
you're looking for that. But again, you're looking for that counterbalance. That's exactly, and that's what they're looking at when you're talking about the genesis of these studio shows, Mike, because they are basically, they want to have, them to kind of, and I guarantee the producers kind of like, we want to refine somewhat of a refined one for television, but they're bringing these guys in for a specific reason. Henrik Lundqvist has the reputation of being calm, cool, collected, analytical, and other people. And Bissonnette was what? He was an enforcer in the NHL. That's what he was.
Yeah,
and he's
but
kind
I think
of
overall, what I'm gauging,
you know what you're getting, though. That's the thing. You know what you're getting. You may not like it, but I think they get people talking.
Though, from what I'm gauging from fan reaction and my own viewing, is that, and this is calling the game, studio, all of it, there's more excitement on TBS than there is on ESPN.
Yeah.
There is. But I also will tell you, and I can say this as well, is that you've got a few people who I think who came over from NBC, who have had, it was kind of a seamless transition.
It was.
NBC was a little bit more buttoned up, and they kind of allowed some of these guys. But you got a guy like Liam, obviously, who was good there and has gotten really, really good. He's kind of the Ernie Johnson of that cast, and basically being the ringleader and keeping things running. So I think they have a little bit of an advantage there when they imported quite a few of the of
But
those.
ESPN had money to spend, and they could have.
ESPN had money to spend, but again, you
spent it on older stars that
Right.
didn't have great reputations on TV,
Right.
and that's what they got.
But these were the recognizable things, and they came back with like basically. We wanted it to be there's this like 90s fetish, I feel like, that the ESPN had, what from their heyday.
Yeah, because they're using
they want those guys that everybody's like, oh, we remember this guy, we remember that guy.
They're using this.
That was the puzzling thing. Like, why Sean McDonough?
Oh my God,
McDonough, because he's professional, but
I really enjoy an announcer who's screaming bloody murder when Ranton is Rico, Ranton. I mean, can you over the top, please? But the best moment.
Weren't you complaining about Gary Thorne back in the day when he would absolutely go ballistic on a late goal?
Yeah, I don't.
Come on, Mike.
I don't like that kind of play-by-play.
Well, I'm sorry. It's a big moment of the game. I'm not gonna crucify him for that, because that was a massive moment.
But he's a little boring at times too.
That's the thing, though. The problem, I think, is that you want to kind of like a build up to that point, whereas it felt like it was and then like sudden massive spike.
Right. That's why it gets shocking.
The best moment that's happened on the current incarnation at ESPN was when Mark Messier had the Stanley Cup last year, and PK was on the panel, and he said, "Yeah, well, PK, where's your name on this?" That was the best moment. Other than that, really, it's not. Their coverage has not been great. I'm sorry.
Right, so some quick hits on the upcoming series. We already talked about Oilers, Knights. We could talk about Panthers, Maple Leafs. I mean, Florida.
That's
Florida's the dirtiest team in the league,
and Toronto better be ready for it.
Toronto has to be ready for that. I don't know if we'll see Ryan Reeves, but it wouldn't shock me.
Russ,
that would be a mistake.
It would be, but I think
I don't. Okay,
in this series, no.
Okay, this is the. Berube will go into game 1 with the same lineup as game 6 against the Senators. He'll give them that because they came through and they won.
Right.
If Florida does what they did against Tampa, which I fully expect, because Marchand will be Marchand. Bennett, last time they played Toronto in the playoffs, ended Matthew Nyes' season. If you don't think he's going to go after Marner,
it's going to be triple. It's going to be triple.
So the only way I think, and the Leafs have more team toughness than they've have in the past. McCabe, Carlo, Lawton, a few other players, but I do think that what's going to happen is after game 1, if they try to pull their Mau act like they did against Tampa, that he's going to put Reeves in the lineup and he's going to say, okay, anybody gets touched, you go at them, you go at one of their stars. We don't care if you get suspended. Take them out because that's the game that they're playing.
Yeah, they have,
and that might be the only after maybe getting run out of the rink or who knows if they win or lose in game 1, but Florida's going to do that. Yeah. It's going to be Mikkola. It's going to be Ekblad suspended for the first game. It's going to be Mikkola. It's going to be Bennett. It's going to be Tkachuk. I mean, they probably won't want Tkachuk to do it because he's too valuable as a player, but they're going to do it. It's just a question.
Tkachuk will be right in the middle. Absolutely. That's part and parcel. So it is tough. It is as tough a matchup as the Leafs could have possibly had. I would have liked their chances more against Tampa than in this case. It's a tough one. The only thing that works to their advantage here is that they have to, leverage. They have to leverage home ice as early as possible. They've got to get up. They have to somehow force Toronto to skate a bit more. I mean, force Florida to skate a bit more with them, because if it's a grind series, and it will probably, all signs point in that direction. The way Florida also took out, it definitely helped that you had a Vasilevsky who just was not.
He was not good.
He was not good. And now I'm sure you're looking and going, okay, you're looking at Stolarz here, and he's going to have to play otherworldly. I think in the series, he's been good, but he's going to have to take it to that much higher of a level in this series. And I jokingly said, my whole thing was Toronto. If they get past round 2, I think they're going to be in the Stanley Cup final, even if Washington gets past the next round.
Yeah,
I feel like this is the series.
What my pick might be.
I'm not going to give away the pick, but to me, this is it. This is the true proving ground for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I'll give you what I think the key to the series is, though, because I saw this in the last series. Bob did not face a lot of shots. The Leafs have to get a lot of shots on net because Bob did not face a lot of shots. There were, his shutout was only 19 saves. Like the most saves he's had to make is 26.
I felt like just Tampa, just once Vaz was out of, like they generated all their confidence, all their play.
Yeah. Well, Kucherov was absent without leave. I mean, he hasn't scored.
He's been scoreless. He's been scoreless in his last 14 playoff games.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how we have so many. It's interesting how many award guys who are nominated up for major awards have struggled in these first round series.
If I'm Berube, I'm telling guys, especially like Marner, who doesn't score, get a lot of shots on net. Do what you haven't been doing because, and again, Florida is going to try and knock you off the puck. They're going to block a lot of shots, but they got to get shots through. I think that's going to be
I know what's going to happen, but let's
nobody knows what's going to happen, Mike.
Yes, I do. But let's just say this: the NHL better be wary of the shitstorm that there will be if a guy like Bennett tries to take out a guy like Matthews or Marner. Especially with the Toronto being the center of the media, the hockey media universe, and how people will go batshit
crazy. It's going to happen. What do you mean they better beware? It's going to happen.
Plus, okay, if he does, then he needs to get suspended.
But like, this is the playoffs. Like, I feel like we're just talking about something we know is never going to happen.
Plus, I mean, I'm sorry, but Hagel hits Barkov in the corner and gets suspended for a game. Kachuk and Ekblad. I mean, Ekblad gets suspended.
Ekblad gets suspended, but I know.
But you know what I'm saying?
There's not that many playoff suspensions. It's just not going to happen.
Well, okay, then frontier justice, folks.
Well, that's what it's going to be. That's what we're saying. Like,
and I have no problem with that, but call it equally.
No. But all I'm saying is, for fans out there, if you are waiting for the refs to rescue your guys because they're getting beat on, it's not going to happen.
No.
It never has. And honestly, it never has, unless they are absolute superstar players who have won championships.
Right.
And then it's like the gold card that Major League Baseball players get that they can go into any game they want to.
Yeah.
Then they get the penalty calls. But you got to earn it first.
By the way, I have one of those for the Baseball Hall of Fame. I only used it once so far, but I do have a free entry card.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool.
Awesome.
That's the closest I've come. But yeah, I agree with you, Ant.
We know you're a Hall of Fame person, Russ. We know that.
I have a book in there, so that's how I got it.
There you go.
Maybe two, but the Hockey Hall of Fame hasn't given me that. Just to be fair, I mean, I have more books than the Hockey Hall of Fame.
You got that over Pete Rose.
Fair point.
I'm sure Pete would get in for free. He got everything for free.
Yeah.
When he was alive. All right. So moving on. What other series do we want to talk about here?
We can just touch briefly on Washington, Carolina.
We might as well.
Okay.
It's going to be boring.
It's going to be boring. I think it's going to be the worst of the four series. It's the Metro. Although Washington, they fought off Montreal, who was plucky.
Yeah.
And, but Carolina. I just have to say, I absolutely laughed out loud when they re-signed Freddie Anderson on a 1-year deal.
I did too.
I mean, it's
predictable.
My favorite though on the whole thing is the fact that, and I get it, it's like, he's the best. He was the best UFA that's available. Yeah, well, that's kind of the way it goes. But in terms of it being a massive loss to other teams that you now can't sign Freddie Anderson, which is what the intimation was, and I'm like, can we throttle back just a little bit, please, on social?
No, but I will tell you, Ant, the reason there is that, and I won't say who, but like at the Flyers breakup day, and this is why Flyers fans, I think, have this thought, that name was brought up within the media while we were chatting before we were waiting for players about Freddie Anderson. And you know who the first one to shoot it down was? Me. I was like, if you're looking for Freddie Anderson.
I was there too. I know. This was just like almost like, Freddie, you really – I mean, if you're a team in transition, I guess, it is. But the problem is that it's his physical availability. And sorry, I need to know that if you are still a team that's trying to move things along, you need it. Flyers definitely need an improved
The
goaltending
Flyers
situation.
would have to have paid more for Freddie than what they paid him because Ivan Fedotov makes more than what Freddie is getting paid.
Don't worry about his physical impairments because Pyotr Kochetkov can play 50 games during the regular season and then not play at all in the playoffs because Rob Brindamore.
Well, that's the way that Brindamore does it. Like, it's an entirely different structure than the rest of the league. The way they run
the coach, he sees them on an everyday basis.
He's your innings eater, Russ, and then you bring up some 23-year-old fireballer from AAA to start Game 1 of the World Series.
Yeah, or you get a guy who's on the mound and he's like trying to fight off Nat.
I'll give you a name though for the Flyers that I do wonder about in terms of a free agent, Russ. I would give you one name and I will give you a familiar name.
Go ahead.
Especially for where they're at as a team right now. Alex Lyon, I could say it.
Yeah,
if they decide not to make a trade, if they decide that they can't get through trade, get a better starter, kind of along the lines of what Bill
I think there would have to be some
what Bill Meltzer was talking about on a previous show.
I think there would have to be some fence mending because through the grapevine I had gotten.
No, I agree. I'm just saying,
Alex Lyon was not thrilled with the way he was treated the last go round.
Yeah, no, it's entirely possible he does not come back, but I'm saying there is some level, that type of a player, if you're not able to upgrade in another manner.
Yeah.
So I don't think it'll be Georgie, if I can tell you that.
Gibson controls his own destiny. Why is he going to go to Philly? No, he's going to stay where he is.
Right.
He's got Quenneville coming. He's got guys. Maybe. He's got other guys coming as far as good young players. Mm-hmm. They're going to possibly be a playoff team next year. Why would he leave now? He's not going to leave.
No, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
All right. That's it.
Yep.
That's it for Off the Post. We'll catch everybody next time.
Take care, everybody.